In Lesson 2, we are going to talk in detail about air masses. Mainly, there are 4 large bodies of air that drift across the globe. When these air bodies are pushed together, the weather can change. Suppose your cousins just returned from a trip. You want to figure out where they went. When they show you the seashells they collected, you know that your cousins were at a beach. You can figure out where air has been too. The air's temperature and water vapor content can give you clues. An air mass is a large body of air with similar properties throughout the whole thing. Air that stays over an area for some time takes on properties of that area and becomes an air mass. An air mass is a large body of air with similar properties all through it. The most important properties are temperature and amount of water vapor. Air mass keeps its original properties for a while as it moves. There are 4 kinds of air masses. Generally, the kind of weather you have at any time is because of the air mass in your area. If you are having several warm, clear days, the weather will remain that way until a new air mass comes into your area. Some kinds of weather usually happen only at the edges of air masses. Winds cause the air masses to move. These winds may be near the ground. Some air masses are guided by the jet stream high above the ground, which we talked about in the last lesson. If the jet stream guides an air mass from Canada to the middle of the United States, northerly winds will probably bring cold, dry air. At the edge of this air mass, storms may occur. So the 4 kinds of air masses are called continental tropical, continental polar, maritime tropical, and maritime polar. The names are going to give you clues as to the characteristics of the air masses. A continental tropical air mass forms over land and is warm and dry. So you can think continent and it forms over land because a continent is land. An example of a continental tropical air mass could be over a large hot desert. The air can be warm and fairly dry. The continental polar air mass forms over land as well. Again, the word continental is cold and dry. You can think polar, cold. The land near the poles is not very moist, so the air mass from this area is cold and fairly dry, making it a continental polar air mass. Maritime tropical forms over water. The word maritime has to do with water. Warm because tropical, and the air mass is also humid. Humid air has lots of moisture. Over tropical oceans or rainforests, an air mass becomes warm and very humid because water can easily evaporate there. And the last type of air mass is the maritime polar air mass, which also forms over water, but is cold and humid. Even though the ocean near the poles is cold, water vapor evaporates into the air. An air mass forming over the poles is cold and moist. Here is the map of where the air masses may be. MT is maritime tropical, CT is continental tropical, MP is maritime polar, and CP is continental polar. Look at this picture. What kind of air mass would form in the air here? What characteristics would the air mass have? Look at this picture. What kind of air mass would form here? And what characteristics would that air mass have? Have you ever seen a line of clouds move from the horizon until it's overhead? What you have probably seen is the arrival of a front. A front is a boundary between 2 air masses. Most air masses move from west to east over the United States, so fronts have the same motion. A front gets its name from the kind of air that moves into the area. A cold front brings colder air into an area. A warm front brings warmer air into an area. Sometimes a front does not move very much, or it moves back and forth over the same area. This is called a stationary front.